Hey everyone, Derpy the Cow here, back with another super quick Battle Pirates video talking about what missile you should be using on your ships. I am mainly going to be focusing on PvE for ships like the Phoenix or Apollo, so let's get right into it. Up on screen I should have a table with a whole bunch of numbers, but luckily I color-coded this table so it's a bit easier to read. On the top, you have the name of all the missiles. So you have the Disruptor D-53D, the Harrier, the Blade, the Switchblade, and that's the secondary missile part of it, not the anti-missile part, and the Scoria and the Generalist Missile, which is the edge missile, and finally the Talon Missile. I expect about 2 months after I release this video, Kixeye is going to add in another missile in the Forsaken mission. So I'm going to have a comment pinned to the top of the comment section if that does happen, with some math done for that one. I'm not going to go through every missile line for line, I'm just going to go a brief overview over all of them, try to keep this video short for you. You'll notice first when looking at this that they all have about 300 to 500 weight, and it's increasing as they get better for the most part. You don't have to worry too much about that, but I'll look at the damage divided by the weight in a few minutes. Moving on to the damage, you can tell that the Talon is highest, with Generalist Missile, the Edge, kind of close, and the Scoria. Building damage, the Scoria actually has an advantage there because it was released to be a building missile along with the Liberator, so it's a bit better in that regard, but it doesn't really make up for the lack of regular damage. In reload, you can tell that about half of them are 4 and the other 3 are 8 or 9. That's not really a huge factor, it's more of the damage per second that I'm going to look at in a little bit. For the range, they are all the exact same maximum range, 98.8, and a couple of them do have minimum ranges that if you get inside, it will be a problem, like the Disruptor and Harrier Blade and the Edge, as well as the Talon with the largest one. This will be a problem if you are doing almost no damage to your targets and some drones get super far inside, but that's only in maybe 5% of cases. In 95% of cases, the range doesn't matter. Now moving on to damage per ton. You can tell the Disruptor, Harrier, and Blade and the Switchblade are far behind the rest with 2.5 or 3 or 5, which aren't that great, but the Switchblade is the best out of the lower tier. Out of the higher tiered ones, the Generalist one is actually the best at 15.75, with the Talon second best at 12.8, but the Generalist one can only go on Generalist 1, so for ships like the Phoenix or Apollo, the Talon's still the best, if you have it. It's pretty much exactly the same for building damage per ton, just the lower ones are doubled, so they're not quite as bad. Moving on to damage per second, you can tell here that the Talon is by far the best, with the Edge coming in second place and the Scoria in actually fourth. The Switchblade beats out the Scoria in damage per second. Same is pretty much true for building damage per second, except the Scoria gets double again because it has double the building damage, so it comes back up near there. The Blade also is almost at the same level as the Switchblade and Scoria, it's just not quite there yet. As far as build time goes, the Talon is the highest, with the Switchblade being second highest, and Disruptor and Harrier are fairly low. Moving on to special abilities, almost every single one of these has one. The Disruptor has 40% bypass, meaning it will avoid some of the resistances that the enemy has, and it has a slow that it can deal per hit. Every hit will do 5%, lasting for an amount of time, up to a max of 35% slow. But most modern day targets will have a resistance against this, so it's not really super effective. The Harrier has a 40% bypass, which goes past a bit of resistances again. And the Blade has a huge 80% flak evasion, meaning enemy anti-missiles have an 80% chance to miss. This can be fairly good for putting 1 or 2 on the very front of your ship, so that the enemy anti-missiles will hit those and not your other stuff. The Switchblade has the largest special ability with a primary anti-missile mode, which makes it kind of function like a phalanx and can shoot down some stuff and deal double duty. It can be kind of negative though if you want to shoot something but your ships are stuck shooting down the enemy missiles, so it's best to mix 1 or 2 blades or Scorias or something on your ship there if you're using the Switchblade. It has 80% flak evasion again, and has retargetable built into the missile, so you don't have to worry about those specials, although most of them do have one. It also gives you a plus 3% corrosive defense, which can be pretty big if used in an old ship like the Apollo. The Scoria has 30% flak evasion, it's decent but kind of small, and then it has a 25% critical chance on enemies below 50% health. Criticals deal double the regular damage, and this averages out to a 12.5% damage increase for all of its stats, which I have already calculated in here. The Generalist Missile gives a whopping 5% corrosive defense, but keep in mind most Generalists won't have a high amount of corrosive defense to begin with, so this is really just making up for the fact. And it can only go on Generalists, which means you can't put it on your Phoenix or Apollo or anything, only things like your Zelos or Empyrean. The Talon has no special abilities, it just happens to be the latest one released, which was paired with the Phoenix and the carbon fiber casing, and didn't really need any. So now moving on to the title of the video, what missile should you use? I would go, if you have the furthest right missile, use it. If not, go back one. For example, the Talon's better than the Edge and the Scoria, and the Blade's better than the Harrier or the Disruptor. I put the Harrier in front of the Disruptor just because of the lower build time by a whole hour, which can add up across all your weapons on all your ships. I would, however, note that in most cases, you're not just going to go pure missiles, you're going to put 1 or 2 anti-missiles on your ship. So my Phoenixes have 7 Talon and 1 Switchblade. The Switchblade is mainly on there for the primary anti-missile part of it, but the secondary part has been helping out some points. But just to sum it up, use the furthest right one you have, and if there is a new one at the time of this release, I'll put a comment that's pinned down below, so make sure you go read that if it is a bit later than 2 months after this video. Which missile you want to use may still depend on the ship you're using, what target you're hitting, how fast you need to build it in, so I just have all the information here for you to see, but in my mind, the furthest right one is better than all the ones to the left, and so on. I hope this quick Battle Pirates video helped you out. If you like this video and want to see more like this, hit that like button, and if you want to see more Battle Pirates content, subscribe. Thanks for watching, this is Derpy, helping you be a better pirate.